Welcome to the Overcommitted Podcast, your weekly dose of real engineering conversations. I'm your host, Brittany, and today I am joined by...
Hey, I'm Bethany.
Hey, I'm Erica.
We met while working on a team at GitHub and realized we are all obsessed with getting better at what we do. So we started this podcast to share what we've learned. We talk about everything from leveling up your technical skills to navigating your professional development, all with the goal of creating a community where engineers can learn and connect. Today on Overcommitted, it is just the three of us. So I figured let's kick it off with our normal question for all of us. What is something you are building or obsessed with right now? And I'll start with Bethany.
Man, I am dreading this question because I feel like I'm not quite sure. I guess if I had to say, what my mind goes to is the GitHub app or the GitHub Copilot app just came out. And honestly, this is probably one of the first, like not trying to show anything, it's probably one of the first tools that truly has changed how I work and how I write code. So that's been really fun to play with and experiment with and try to nail down a good workflow. But yeah, other than that, just kind of enjoying the weather and also trying to run a 5K right now. So I actually am doing it.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Erica, how about you?
The other side of the AI spectrum where I recently tried to build a skill. I've been implementing more sort of repeatable AI context. And it is not as easy as it seems to get it right. First pass at this skill generation, it got everything almost completely backwards. There's a V1 and V2, and I was like, this is V1, this is V2, and I started testing it. It was like, this is V1, and I'm like, nope, that's not right. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good reminder that don't take anything without checking it. Because I think I've gotten pretty comfortable with being oh yeah, that seems right. So yeah, very much testing and verifying the output of. So yeah, that's kind of, I won't say I'm obsessed with it because it is really frustrating. I've been manually testing because when I've had Copilot or whatever AI I'm using, when I have it test itself, it's looks good.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating and feels kind of manual at this point. If anyone has tips on how to do this better, I'm all ears. Yeah, but I guess it is going to be more a part of my life. So I guess, the obsession is I know it's important. Yeah, want to get it better, get it right. Yeah. What about you, Brittany?
Yeah. So I just switched jobs. So I've got a lot that I'm learning, which is what we're going to talk about, I guess, throughout this is, learning and picking up new jobs. But one of the things that has come with that is when I was at GitHub, I had free unlimited usage of Copilot. And so that was pretty much all I used for my AI tool of choice, because why would I pay for something if it's free? That is no longer the case. So I have been spending some time getting to know a couple of Claude tools, the Claude Cowork specifically, and then I guess Claude Code as well. But yeah, Claude Cowork. One of the things I've been obsessed with is I put up together my Obsidian template for this new job, and I've been using Cowork to help manage it and keep my to-do list up to date and help me go work through notes from different meetings I'm in. And I've been very obsessed with that. I think that's been really fun. I've also just been very much just vibing my way through it. And I don't think that I have anything valid to provide to you, Erica, unfortunately, on building skills. Cause I'm yeah, that works. Or I'll forget the skill exists and be oh, can you do all these things again? So I still need to get there all the way. But yeah, it's been really fun to try out new skills. And there are some things that I do miss about Copilot too, I've realized. And I'm I really miss queuing things. Queuing isn't really as much of a thing in Claude Code as it is in Copilot. And I used that heavily.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, what we're talking about this week. Yes, recently I switched jobs. Things are different now. Things are weird. I now work at Bluesky. And I've been obnoxious enough about at Proto in the past several months to now have found myself a job in that ecosystem. So I'm very excited about it, and really enjoying it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about like first, like what is it like to switch jobs right now? And also what is it like to like learn how to do a new thing right now? Because AI exists. And so like a lot of the traditional playbook that I've been using to like learn a new code base is very different from what it used to be. So
Also, we
yeah.
got to know how it actually is pronounced. At proto or at proto?
Oh, I honestly don't know the that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I always say at proto, but I also hear people say AT proto. It's like GIF and GIF. Like, yes is the
Does
answer.
it does it stand for something?
Oh yeah. So the AT is the authenticated transfer protocol. That's what it
Oh.
stands for. hmm
Okay.
hmm
So maybe like AT is like the formal way and then at is like the cheeky cute way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you always at people as well, like with their
Yeah.
handle, and they call it the atmosphere. And so it's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, yeah. It's been really fun so far though. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
We're also curious about the job searching um experience because yeah, neither Bethany or I have really done that in a while. So I think
yeah,
what I've heard, it's a lot different now than it was before. So yeah,
Yeah, for
how
context, we got our jobs in 2022 and the market was very, very different than what it is now. So
yeah.
it'll be very interesting to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like, especially if you're interested in startups, I feel like there's a lot happening right now. I know there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, no, the tech layoffs and everything," but I feel like that's mostly happening in, like, these big tech companies. And if you're okay with doing the startup thing, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities out there, especially if you have experience. I think it's really hard if you don't have experience yet, and that's one of those, like, tragic catch-22s, like, "How do I get experience if you don't let me have experience?" But I do feel like, if you're like a senior engineer out there looking for a new thing, you'll probably be able to find a thing. But I think the thing that's really weird is a lot of these companies have traditionally used like LeetCode-type questions um, to like, you know, assess your engineering chops, which I've always hated personally because I'm terrible at them. Um, but also like that's a weird skill set right now, right? Like I don't
Mhm.
know. There's very few times where I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go solve this really hard algorithm for fun. Like that's what AI does now. So yeah, it's really weird. And I don't think that everybody has totally caught up yet. I didn't interview it at like a ton of places, but like I think ubiquitously across the board from places I was talking to, they're like, "Ah, yeah, we're still figuring out what this means for interviews," because like that's been like the goalpost, I feel like, for a while, where they're like, all right, let's, use this really hard leak code problem that kept getting harder and harder because people would just get like really good at doing leak code. Um, and now I think it is worth even less than it was before.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like I don't know. I feel like I want to push back on the idea that like that's not still valuable to a certain degree because you have to know why it works and how it works regardless of who wrote it. And it can be hard to explain that. Even if you get some kind of generated code, like how do you know that it's working? Like how do you confirm that, it's taking the right path? Um, and like I feel like there's room for, you know, write whatever solves the problem, whether you use AI or whether you write it yourself. But then at the end, you have to like prove that it's working and explain to a coworker like what it's doing. And like that could be the interview. You know what I mean? Like, because that's kind of the job. It's like if you can't explain what it's doing, then like I'm not going to let you merge it. I'm not going to approve your PR if you can't give me a 2 sentence description of how your code works.
Yeah. I think like my favorite interviews have been, at least when I was doing the last round, were like PR review
Mm.
interviews where you had to literally just do a live code review, because I think that really fundamentally tests so much of what it means to be a software engineer, so that you can read and understand code, you can walk through it, you can leave intentional and empathetic feedback, things like that. And it's also very hard to cheat at something like at a PR review one, because you're kind of doing it live, versus the coding one specifically. But I agree. I've never quite hated LeetCode ones, even though I do dislike LeetCode, and I don't think that's like really what's valuable in a software engineer. However, it is really good for just getting people to talk and think like they're problem solving.
Mhm.
Factor. So if you just take off like, oh, you have to actually solve this algorithm, and it's more like, okay, you're like brainstorming, trying to collaborate on a problem you probably don't know the answer to, then I think that's a really interesting use case. But I think as soon as you say you have to solve this problem in like 2 minutes, then I don't think that's worthwhile at all.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. Especially, I think a lot of the problem with them is like their folks will just practice them over and over until they like memorize a lot of the patterns. And then it's like, it's not even really problem solving. I guess it is. It's, pattern matching, but that's a very
Mhm.
different skill set than like, oh, can you take a hard problem and solve it? Um, I think that,
Also
yeah.
leads to biases too. Like if somebody has all the time to study those, I think that's a very different subset of people, or a pool, than people who might not have time to solve those. So I think that's another thing to factor in there. But totally agree, Brittany.
I would also like if I were designing like technical interviews, like I would put in a section where it was like you need to come up with like 3 different ways to solve this problem and then argue like
Mm.
the trade-offs of each. Um
Oh.
yeah, cuz that's also like very real life, right? Like there's not only one way to do it, and like it tells a lot about a person if they're willing to look at multiple ways. And like to me, if you're able to like sort of be less emotional about like one direction that you're taking, you're going to be a whole lot easier to work with than somebody who thinks that one way is the right way to do it and it's the only way. And if you don't do it this way, you're wrong.
Mm. Hard agree. I like that.
As of yet, I haven't seen anyone do that.
Yeah.
Did anyone do that in your interviews?
I don't think so. I feel like that's like a really common follow-up question though. Is like, how else could you do this? Like if you solve
That's
a
true.
thing. Yeah, the only other thing I can think of that was kind of weird is like because some places are, open, like you can use AI for everything when you're doing this interview. But it takes time and then there's like some latency waiting for it. So like that's kind of awkward to just be like, all right, I'm waiting for my prompt response. Just give me a minute while Claude's thinking for me, I guess. Yeah, that's a little weird, but that's the times, I guess, that we're in.
So were the questions and the prompts any different? Or was the only difference like the fact that you're able to use AI?
I think it's just you can use AI. Some places are like not cool with you using AI as well, which I think is also probably a really good signal right now. Like, can't you solve a problem when your internet isn't working?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to have to do it again for a long time because job searching is always really stressful. But it
Yeah.
was weird and interesting to see what it looks like now, today. So, um,
Yeah. So you got the job. You're there now. So how has it been? You've been there for 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Yeah. I think one of the things that I was reflecting on is I think about a year ago, I wrote this article on the GitHub blog. We actually previously talked about it on the podcast, how GitHub engineers learn new code bases. In March 13th, 2025. So a year and 3 months ago. Um, and like 10 years in AI dog years because things have changed so much since then. So I thought it'd be interesting to like look at back at like, all right, what are the things that make sense? Like hands-on code exploration, collaborative learning. I'll make sure we link this. Um, Collaborative learning, I feel like that's a big thing to talk about, like how pair programming has changed. Building documentation also has changed. Learning by teaching, I feel like that's still pretty applicable. But I think those are the four main pillars is like, how do you explore code now? How do you learn with other people? And how you're building documentation. All three of those things have changed pretty dramatically, I think. So I thought it'd be interesting to just like get takes on how those have changed and what that means now in life. Yeah. Um, so the first one I think is hands-on code exploration. That one, I think I had already called out in there that you could use, Copilot to search through a code base, but it's even better now than it used to be. Um, Almost to the point where, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna go to that first versus just, like, spelunking through the different I feel like the first thing I would always look for is, like, "Alright, what's the folder setup? Like, where are the controllers and the database and everything?" But now I'm like, "Alright, tell me where all this stuff is and what the mental model is I should be using." I don't know if you have similar experiences or if either of you have learned a new code base recently to comment on that, but
I've been in the same code base, but I did go through a reorg. I guess it's been like 6 months, I
Mm,
think now. So it's not like that recent, but less than a year. So, you know, feels recent still. And it was only like an additive reorg. Like we basically like took our existing area and then like added a whole like half a team's area onto
classic.
onto what we were already doing. So um yeah, and you know, I like I've been finding that for me the like best way to understand what's happening is still through user flows and like user flow diagrams, and that's even like through to the back end. Like for me it's like, okay, where does this start? Like how do I know it's broken? And like how do I know, you know, what the important parts are in between? So like if it's a bug, I'll try to replicate it. I'll try to like write a test. Ideally, I'll try to like, do a debugger session or something like that to like know what the code paths are that we're hitting. And then I'll look at like production telemetry data. Um, and yeah, for me that's like the right place to start in like grounding in like a mental model of like a certain user flow. Because I find that if I get too in the weeds too fast, I'll just like totally lose the plot. Like I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like this query and like that, and like, oh yeah, we could make that optimization. And it's like I just totally like lose whatever I'm actually doing. So focusing it on like, this is what's broken, or like this is what I'm trying to do, and like tying it back to like the actual customer experience, or like feature or bug or whatever is still like the right way to start for me. Um, it's hard with like a whole area because there's so like it's like combinatorial, right? It's like okay, like for example, so apps, like GitHub apps or OAuth apps, like that's the new thing that my team has taken on. And like there's this whole idea of like tokens within apps. It's like I have never done like a deep code dive into like how tokens are minted, how they're stored, like how they're invalidated. Um, and like I finally like wrote down all my questions of like these are all my questions about like all the different ways that like, tokens go through these life cycles. And I'm like, it would take me like a week to, actually go through each user flow manually and like validate each thing. Which like I'll probably like split up and do over the next month or so. But yeah, it can definitely feel like a lot to kind of do it that way. Like, yeah, the 30,000-foot code view, um, like I guess can kind of get you started, but I feel like that's also like a dangerous place to be where you're like, I know something, and then you start to try to do something and you're like, oh wait, no, I don't I don't know how this actually works.
I can totally see you going through that flow, Erica. Like with you're so curious and like are so good at like really diving into things. I can definitely see that. But that's cool to hear. Um, I also haven't changed code bases. My code base, I'm still working on the same one, but it has been going through a lot of refactoring, which is very exciting. It was very due for one, but it does now mean that like all my mental models are outdated. And then we also traded some AORs from our team to other teams because we were very overwhelmed with the new scope of everything and AI apps as a whole. So it's been really interesting trying to help others learn that and then hand it off, and then also learn basically a evolving code base. But I think I've always had success with like just in time or JIT learning, because otherwise I too get quickly overwhelmed if it seems like an infinite amount of information to learn or store in my brain. It's just impossible for me to do that. So if I need to know something, I usually will just like, shoot off a question real quick to Copilot, or if I'm trying to get an answer from a different team, I'll try to self-serve as much as possible with AI, like in their code base, ask a question about like the dependency and stuff like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least it's doing some due diligence before poking at other teams. But I have found it very helpful for visualizing code better because I'm just such a visual learner, and that's always how I've enjoyed learning. So it's really cool that at a notice I can get diagrams even if folks didn't diagram it in the first place or if the diagrams are outdated. So I really enjoy that.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I still feel like something that has remained the same is like the easiest way to get into something is to like actually solve a problem versus just trying to read it and glean what you can from it. Um, Although one thing that I've found that I've really liked now that I can leverage AI for like learning a new space is asking it like, all right, here's what I'm seeing. What are the logs I could look for? Or like what is the evidence that I could see for like what's occurring to narrow things down in the code? Like what should I be looking for, in whatever dashboards you have access to? And it's amazing how much faster I can solve, a bug or a problem like that with that. Um, yeah, it's been really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And also like asking why it came up with an answer.
Mm,
Um, if something seems off, be like, why did you say this? Like, um, yeah, see how
yeah.
it responds.
Yeah. It's a weird week too. Fable was just released and I'm still trying to figure out whether like is this is this it? Like is this the thing that now it can do everything and it's all correct or whatever? I don't think so just yet. But yeah. Weird week wondering when our jobs will change to where we are no longer needed. Whether or not that happens. What about collaborative learning? How's pair programming going for you all at this point? Like, is this a thing that you still do? And what does it feel like now?
I would love to know how you all are pair programming. I saw Erica nod, so I'm really hoping you have some tips because, to be honest, I mean, we chatted with Dennis about this a while back on how you have to be so intentional about maintaining that social fabric. And so it's tough. You don't really need to pair program as much, since you always have a pair programmer with you now. But it's still good for your team, for your well-being to be able to collaborate with others. So really looking for some tips on that.
Yeah, I have recurring pairing sessions set up with everyone on my team. Um,
Oh,
they run the gamut from like I have this thing that I'm working on that I want to ask questions or brainstorm on, to like talking about the team, like, maybe something that happened, maybe we had a release, like let's talk about how it went. Um, and then like there are times when we'll like dig into the code. Honestly, like I don't feel like it's meaningfully changed that much when we do get into the code. Like kind of like you're talking about with interviewing, like you have an extra tool now, but like, somebody will run something on their prompt or whatever, or just like come up with an idea or whatever. And like, you're still implementing the code, like, um, whether it's like through typing or through prompting or whatever. I guess I usually do find that pairing, like I write more code manually than like prompt the AI to use it. I think because like I don't usually like one shot, it's like when I prompt, it's like, okay, then we like iterate on it or whatever. But if, it's like, oh, we wrote this thing, now we're going to write some tests, like I'll fire off like a prompt to add the tests or something. Um, yeah, but like I said, I always feel like there's something to talk about in a pairing session. It might not always be like code itself, but yeah, there's always something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, last week I was co-working with some of my new coworkers, and I was so excited because I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna be in an office together. We're gonna get to, like, you know, pair, like, in real time or whatever," and we did do a lot of, like, very explicit, like, "Alright, we're gonna meet and talk about plans," or whatever. But then, like, when we had, like, spare time to actually do work, it was just like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna have my Claudes do this while you'd have yours do that." And then maybe talk about, like, I don't know, something fun or whatever while we're waiting for responses to come back. Uh which I think is, I like the idea of having regular, like, intentional pairing sessions, like you said, Erica. I think I'm gonna set that up, uh, because I think the value is still there, even if it's not, like, talking about, like, "Alright, let's work through this code problem," but, like, what is our mental model of this thing, and does it align? I think that that's probably really valuable still, and something that I think I'm missing for sure. But yeah, different world now. What about documentation? I think one of the reasons that I originally wrote this is I wrote a bunch of documentation on some of the billing things when I first started on the billing team at GitHub. And it ended up being really useful documentation for like the entire repo. Um Now I feel like documentation is almost a little bit more disposable because it's easier to keep up to date in a lot of ways, which means that, maybe it's not adding these docs you created to the repo unless it's like, actually something that is going to live long term. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on writing documentation in code for code in general now? Is this still something that you're doing regularly? Have you figured out a good way to keep it up to date automatically? And has your opinion on docs changed at all?
This is such a good one, because I think in theory, it's easy to keep them up to date, but I don't know if in practice it's still easy to keep them up to date. Um, my team's definitely been experimenting with like workflows to track changes and make updates to docs, which I'm really interested in seeing how that'll go. But yeah, I think the age-old problem still exists that if you have documentation in disparate places, it still is hard to know to update docs unless you have CI checks or like agent instructions or things in place to the culture in place to ensure that documentation gets updated. I do still think documentation is very valid because I, I think I still read docs, but I think even if you're not reading docs, your agent has to read docs to understand how to do things. A lot of the times, like you can say it just uses code, but I think it really depends on the system. If it's a simple project, sure, it can just read the code, but if it spans multiple projects, I think it gets a little tough after that point. So I think our playbooks have gotten super important to me personally to make sure that those are up to date, especially as more and more code is going through and you're not able to actually keep up with the mental model of all the code going through. I think to me, playbooks are the things that are top tier for keeping updated. So your on call can immediately be effective and understand how to work on something. So I think that's my kind of strategy is at least the playbooks are golden. But Erica, I know you're passionate about this, so I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like um to me docs serve multiple purposes, and one of them is generating alignment on something. So whether that's like technical direction or like um I don't know, team practices, like um part of what makes docs valuable is that like they can be commented on, they can be edited, like they can be approved or denied. Like, um, so I think, like we've said multiple times, like the human element is never going away, you know? Even if your doc is like, this is how we use AI, or like, this is how, like, you're a robot, like, this is how you're supposed to work. Like, that in itself, in my mind, isn't like a piece of documentation um, that can be, approved or denied. So, um, yeah, I agree that like code documentation is really easy to get out of date. Um, but like I do think a certain level of like inline commenting can be really helpful for like anybody reading or reviewing your code. So and that's like again like a form of documentation. I think the pure like readme.md, I still appreciate it because, it's like then I don't have to do that work myself. Like you said, like it still does take time to like fire off a prompt. So if it's there and it's up to date and it gives me the 5 commands I need to get started, great. You know, like and some things are like not obvious from the code. Like I get back to tokens. It's like what permissions does my token need to access these resources? Like I can probably figure it out, but like if you tell me, then great. Like I don't have to do that guesswork, and it could take a while to kind of like suss out that information. So those are the things that kind of come to mind for me. Um, yeah. What about you? I mean, yeah, you were like the documentation master. Like this was your this was your thing.
I'm still very passionate about Diataxis. I'm gonna add that link. Yeah, I'm still a big fan of documentation personally because I feel like that's how I um, you know, work through things as I write it down. Um, and that is why I also write a lot of things on the internet. So I think it's still valid, but I don't think that I'm gonna like I don't think that as many things need to be documented as there was before. Like, I think that, like, write down the specs for how a thing is supposed to work. But how the thing actually works is probably better to infer from the way that the code is written than, whatever your intentions were when you created it, because those can differ quite a bit. And it's hard to keep those up to date, especially as code is moving so much faster than it was in the past. I think that it's really, really hard to keep those things updated. Yeah, I don't think I'm committing as much documentation as I used to be because I'm more nervous, I guess, about things being out of date. And but I think that that's still like a good framework for figuring out what should be documented is the diataxis framework, which is like, what is your reference code? What are the features that are supposed to be in this? Where are things like any sort of proof of concept or ADR, I think is still super valuable, especially because then that just becomes, an artifact of a thing that you end up using quite a bit when you're building, and you can like measure against it to be like, did we do this the way that we said we were going to do it? So yeah, I feel like I use more AI tools to write documentation now and to like make sure that the documentation that I write actually makes sense without, I don't know, but maybe that's still the same amount that I did a year ago because I don't know that they've gotten like dramatically better at writing documentation.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you both what your thoughts on AI writing documentation was, because I know some people draw a line at AI writing for them or writing in their voice or something, but others are like, oh yeah, you'll better up to date or probably can be more clear that way. So very curious that perspective. But Brittany, it sounds like you do use AI to write, at least like with documentation and things, or to check your writing.
Yeah, I would say it's mostly like as an editor to be like, all right, does the thing that I wrote make sense how I wrote it? I feel like I've been wanting to. I've had this idea for a comic rolling around in my head for a while now. Where did you ever see that meme where it was like, where do you draw the line? And it was like a PETA thing where there was different animals on the image, and it was like spanning from like dogs to like like horses or whatever. Like, where do you draw the line on the animals you eat versus the ones that you like you know don't? Um, and somebody went in like with a pen and like drew on there, like, all right, this is, every day. Yes. Or this is, economic collapse. This is where I would draw the line or whatever. I feel like there's a very similar meme to be made about like how you feel about AI generation. Like I'm not a big fan of AI generated images. Like I wouldn't do it myself. I don't necessarily like judge other people for it, but I know that there are some people that are like, no AI generated art whatsoever. Same with like, AI generated text. Like I'm not going to use AI to generate text, but I'll use it to edit. Um, and I think that like there's some people also who like are very at a different spot in that spectrum. AI generated code, like yeah, that's standard now. That's just normal. How I will pretty much accept like yes, this does what I want it to. Great, let's use it. So yeah, I think that's sort of where I'm at on the spectrum. Use it more as an editor. I think I've tried AI generation of actual text in the past, and it just never really usually when I'm like taking the time to write a thing, I already have something in mind on what I want to say. And so there's not really a ton of value in saying like, hey, help me write this thing. But help me look at this from the perspective of somebody who's in like communications or something. Like, how does this come off externally? I think that's really helpful. What about you both?
Yeah, I go back and forth because it's so easy to like go from blank page to something with like AI generated text, and like I feel like it kind of depends on the audience and like what it is. Like if it's, I don't know, if it's sort of like a summary or like a PR description or something like that, like I'm more fine with AI generation because like it doesn't, it's not like, it's not like a piece of content that's like meant to be read kind of as, what am I trying to say? Like, I guess I don't really know. I don't really know where the line is, for me personally, but like I think if it's like a broader discussion post or something like that, like I'm less likely to generate it. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that line is. I can't like really define it, but maybe it's sort of like an internal versus external audience or something like that. Like internal to my team or yeah. Like personal notes too. I'm like, sure, just like generate a note and it's fine.
Yeah. I feel like this is a thing too where every time I think about it, I'm like, whichever way this ends up going, like whatever I say now is probably going to get me canceled on the internet in the future for something. Like I'm going to say the wrong thing and people are going to be like, look back and be like, oh, she used AI for that, or you didn't use AI for that. And I feel like either way, like somewhere in this story is going to go wrong. So I'm like, I'm afraid to take a stance anywhere.
Well, everyone apparently already thinks that we're AI generated, so
That's true.
maybe
Yeah.
this is the point where we say that we are definitely not AI generated.
AI generated podcasters right here.
No, we are
That's
not.
true.
We are not on that AI podcast network.
I
We can
swear.
do the face thing or whatever. Where you're like, oh look, AI can't do this.
Get on palm of my fingers. I promise I'm not AI.
And before AI does be able to do that. No, I think like, I mean, talking about being canceled on the internet. I mean, I think like any stance is going to get canceled on the internet by someone. So it's just kind of say what you feel in the moment. Maybe it'll change, maybe it won't. But I think these are really interesting perspectives, and I love the like thought that like, well, it depends on the audience for sure. Like I've definitely generated like notes for myself and things like that. Like I'll type something that I'm like for sure would not make sense to future me, but like AI can turn it into something that might make sense to future me. But yeah, I mean I used to um well, I tried to not let like Copilot post as me. I mostly do now just because I can't figure out how to get it to stop posting as me. Like I've told it to not do that, but it still does. So I'm like, okay, you know what? At least it'll be clear about what things are, and people will know it's not me because that's not how I talk. But I do think that it can be very verbose, and I don't like reading through AI text a lot because it's just like really hard to parse a lot of times. Like, I've even tried to make skills to say, okay, you are responding to somebody who does not know this code base. Like, it's just they're integrating into this. Do say the simplest thing possible without leading into what the implementation details are. And that's it. And it just struggled so much with that. I'm like, 2 sentences max. You don't get any more than that. And it struggled. So I think like with the tools now, they're just not very good at writing, and I don't think they're very effective at like communicating, except in ways that probably would help it with like its thought process or something like that. So, if it's anyone outside of me reading it, I typically won't generate it. At least I'll maybe have it edit like you do, Brittany. But yeah, I think at this point it's just not there yet for writing.
Makes sense. Nice. Well, this has been a fun trip down blog post memory lane. But I think we're just about at time. So I think that we need to move on to our fun section. And speaking of AI generated, there are 2 options that were both AI generated. Yeah,
I
agreed.
like the confessions one.
Okay, yes. 2 truths and a lie, new job edition. Each host tells 3 short stories from a first week or first day at any job they've had. The other 2 guess which one is invented. No sourcing needed, pure stories. Great. Do you need any time to think up good
Yes, it's been
stories for
over
this?
4 years since I last started a job. I don't think they were that dramatic either.
Yeah, I only have like one very fun like first week at a new job story. And it's from a long time ago. So yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be, anything crazy. In fact,
That's true.
like, yeah, the more benign, the less likely we are to think that the lie is a lie.
Okay, I'm gonna take a second to write something down so that I can read from it.
All right, I'll noodle on it.
Okay. I guess I can go first. Um, okay. Uh, First thing is I started my like new joiner class with somebody who I'm now on the same team with. Um, Second one is um I merged a change into GitHub monolith my first week on the job. And third one is um that I did all of my onboarding on time, like on schedule.
That has to be the lie.
Yeah, I don't think I even finished mine.
Still have some onboarding task or whatever sitting there in a GitHub issue that has
Yeah.
never been closed.
That was not
Yeah.
the lie. The lie was that I contributed to the GitHub code base in the first week. I did not. I think
Oh,
it was like the second week.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense.
Splitting hairs there.
I know. We should have known that. Actually, I shouldn't have because I started like a month after you. But Bethany was there. So
I did not keep track of your contributions, believe it or not.
Yeah. Exactly.
your first week contributions. I know that there are DX right now is doing a thing where they like measure your time to your first 10 PRs, I think, as like a measurement to see like how much more quickly people can get onboarded. That's like your onboarding time is your time to your
Oh,
first 10
yeah.
PRs. But yeah, I don't know about the first one. Okay. I've had a lot of jobs throughout my life. So thinking about some good ones. The first one, I started a new job and met some very cool people that were part of what we called the new crew, and they became really good friends of mine.
If that's a lie, I'm gonna riot.
They were not cool.
They're terrible people.
Okay. Second, I once left a job in the first week after having to clean up puke multiple times. And third, I once had to go to a training where I learned how to measure sound decibel level within a hotel at very loud. God, I can't even do a lie.
Oh, it's that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I started in a place and then it just like, oh shit, I need more details.
I was like, these are so hyper specific.
Very, very, very specific.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. I did leave a place though. I got a job at a pizza place when I was in high school, and I was like the smallest person that worked there. And somebody threw up on the twisty slide. And they're like, "All right, Brittany, you got to go clean it up." I was like, "Oh God, this is terrible." So I did, and then I had to do it. They like threw up a second time on the same slide, and I was like, "All right, I'm out. This is it. I'm done.
Wow.
No more."
Honestly, I respect that.
Yeah.
I think that's
It was-
valid.
Yeah, most assertive I ever was in a job. Bethany, what's yours?
All right. So for my very first full-time job, I was the only one who wore a dress on the first day of the job. For my second one, I wrote my first lines of Ruby my first week at GitHub. And my third one is I never got my welcome package from GitHub.
I feel like your welcome package is a lie.
Yeah, same.
It is. I got 2 welcome packages.
Even better.
I feel like it's long enough that I feel okay telling people that. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't tell anyone this.
They're not gonna make you.
I
They're gonna make you send back your.
You would have followed up on that. Like,
Yeah.
excuse me, where's my sweatshirt?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have. I love some free swag, honestly.
Did you get 2 sweatshirts?
What?
Did you get two handle sweatshirts?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
What a
Oh.
flex.
It is. You can clone yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true. Someone composes me.
Excellent. Well, this was really fun. It was great to chat with you both. Thank you so much for tuning in to Overcommitted. If you like what you hear, please do follow, subscribe, or do whatever it is you like to do on the podcast app of your choice. Check us out on Bluesky and share with your friends. Until next week, goodbye.